Who doesn't enjoy a good conspiracy theory? Is Bigfoot real? Did we really land on the moon? I'm pretty sure you get the idea. And being that it is Friday the 13th, why not combine the two in this week's 5 count? My name is Jose Ramos Jr. and join me as we take a look at some of the notable conspiracy theories within the world of professional wrestling. Now, before we begin our list of 5, I want to make sure that everyone knows that this isn't just necessarily a top 5 list or my personal favorite. These are just 5 of the more common conspiracy theories in the world of pro wrestling. Now, with that being said, our first one that we will discuss is that of the Ultimate Warrior. For those who aren't familiar with the Ultimate Warrior, he is a wrestler that had debuted in the fall of 1987, becoming one of the bigger stars that WWF at that time had really created. He was a former Intercontinental Champion and a WWE Champion who began rivaling the success of that of a Hulk Hogan. There were some disputes behind the scenes between he and Vince McMahon, which would lead to some hiatuses taken from the Ultimate Warrior. And in 1992, the Ultimate Warrior would return at WrestleMania 8 to help save Hulk Hogan against the attack of Sid Justice and Papa Shango. The only issue was that fans began to notice that there was a difference in appearance regarding the Ultimate Warrior. He now had sharp blonde hair, short blonde hair, and had a leaner and much smaller physique than the Ultimate Warrior that we had all grown accustomed to seeing. Now, there were rumors and reports saying that the Ultimate Warrior, the original Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig, had died during that period that he had taken away from the WWE. There were many theories leading to the idea that perhaps it was liver failure due to consumption or overusage of steroids, as well as this crazy theory that the arm tassels that he would have around his biceps were just too tight and cut off the circulation for his blood to travel. Now, obviously, I think this is one of the more outlandish conspiracy theories there are within pro wrestling, but it's very interesting to think about the early days of the internet and how it really ran rampant that people couldn't really wrap their heads around the idea that someone could alter their appearance throughout the course of a year. I think one way to debunk this simply is the fact that around this time, the WWE was going through the steroid trial. They were being criticized for the usage of performance-enhancing drugs throughout their federation, and I think it's fair to say that the Ultimate Warrior might have been one of those wrestlers who was consuming steroids. You could see around this time period, guys like Warrior and Hulk Hogan had both leaned down during the steroids trial, probably as a way to distance themselves from bad publicity and the steroid itself. To think that this was something that many professional wrestling fans couldn't wrap their minds around, as well as wrestling analysts, simply boggles my mind. We know that the Ultimate Warrior would return to the WWE in '96 and a Hall of Fame run in 2014 until ultimately passing away due to a heart failure. How about we stick in the early 90s, the new generation era, as we already talked about one of our participants in this conspiracy theory. The year is 1993, the event WrestleMania 9 Caesar's Palace, and the man in question is Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, very known for his checkered past when it comes to comments or controversies, but this one's a little bit more lighthearted if you ask me. Not much darkness as surrounding around the inevitable death of the Ultimate Warrior, but Hulk Hogan had a tag team match. Him and Brutus Beefcake would have a tag title match against Money Inc. The thing that was pretty interesting about his appearance during WrestleMania 9 was he was sporting a black eye. Now, the way the WWE tried to play around this in kayfabe was that Ted DiBiase hired a group of men to attack Hulk Hogan, preventing him from competing at WrestleMania 9. But the actual event in question has never really been explained. Some people believe it might have been some kind of accident. Others have the conspiracy theory that Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan had an altercation over the course of the weekend. As we know, Randy Savage was a bit paranoid when it came to those who were close to Miss Elizabeth. Some believe that Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage had a bit of a run-in that resulted in Randy Savage throwing a punch at Hulk Hogan, resulting in a black eye. This is one of those stories that I don't think we're ever going to really get a resolution to or a conclusion as to what really happened, but it's interesting to think what really does happen behind the scenes during WWE's biggest weekend of the year. Now, I know I said I would try to steer away from the dark side of the ring, but how can you not talk about the Von Erich family? As you see over my shoulder, I have a copy of the Iron Claw, and the story itself really is based in two different words, and that's family and tragedy. Professional wrestling has a lot indebted to the Von Erich family, and to think about all the hardships that they had encountered throughout their careers and throughout their lives. A group of brothers who all they wanted to do was be a part of the professional wrestling business that their father was a part of, only left with one brother to date. A story that's filled with tragic deaths, a motorcycle incident, a leg amputation, and so much more after the fact. How can you not talk about the Von Erichs? There's some people who do believe that there is a curse of the Von Erichs, as we've seen time and time again. So many documentaries, so many period pieces, and now with a feature film already on the books. It's a topic that never really gets easier to talk about, but I think it is worth mentioning about the Von Erich family. How could we not talk about conspiracy theories without the Montreal Screwjob? Of course, the Montreal Screwjob has been talked to death on all forms of media, whether it's in the WWE documentaries or YouTube videos such as this. But the Montreal Screwjob really is the epicenter of professional wrestling. So much has either went into it or came out of the event itself. But one theory is that the Montreal Screwjob was actually a work, that it was actually planned behind the scenes by those that were involved. Now, there are many accounts that may dispute this or support it, but it's interesting to point out 4 details about the Montreal Screwjob. 1. The Wrestling with Shadows documentary that was being filmed around the time of the Screwjob's incident. Bret Hart had a documentary, and how ironic is it that they were able to capture behind the scenes footage and audio of the conversations between Bret Hart and Vince McMahon. Was it a way to promote the documentary? Who's to say? Number 2. The camera work. Following the Montreal Screwjob, wouldn't it make sense that the camera work would kind of deviate from all these incidents? But the fact that they were able to capture Bret Hart doing the WCW logo in the air, the fact that they focused in on Shawn Michaels leaving with the title, as well as Vince McMahon getting spit on by Bret the Hitman Hart. Of course, you can make the argument that the cameramen didn't know about the situation, so naturally they're going to film what is taking place. Number 3, Bret Hart got paid. Bret Hart wanted to get money. He wanted to get a contract that guaranteed him a decent amount of money that would help him provide for his family. Vince McMahon couldn't do that. So who's to say the two didn't conspire together and find a way to get Bret Hart to be at the top of his game and be one of the hottest names in professional wrestling, so that when WCW offered him a contract, not only would it make Bret Hart happy, but it would in turn affect the long-term value and financial issues in WCW. Finally, coming out of the Montreal Screwjob, one of the biggest impact in WWE history was that of the Mr. McMahon character. This really proved to be the genesis of what that authority figure would be in the WWE. It has given us timeless moments, matches, and memories regarding heel authority figures and the overpromotion of Mr. McMahon not only as a character, but as a businessman as well. Of course, we may never really know the answer to whether or not Montreal was a work, but it's still something interesting to consider. Our 5th and final conspiracy theory within the world of professional wrestling. This one's a little bit more fun for me, because I don't know how real it can get, but there is a common conspiracy theory that Vince Russo, the former head writer of the WWE/WWF in the 90s, had been sent to WCW as a double agent to NWCW. I find this to be very comical because it could be one of 2 ways. 1. Vince Russo may have known this and had purposely defeated WCW, put them out of business, so that Vince McMahon and the WWE would win. The only fault in that is, then why wasn't Vince Russo brought back full-time to the WWE? If you want to believe this conspiracy theory, I think the one possible reason behind this is that Vince McMahon had recognized that Vince Russo, with his outlandish approach when it came to booking shows, could not be contained in WCW. Vince McMahon in WWE is the last call. He has the final say when it comes to the product. So every idea that Vince Russo had promoted to him was funneled through and either approved or denied by Vince McMahon. Vince Russo would not have that in WCW, so Vince McMahon knowingly sending Vince Russo to WCW as a long-term way to defeat WCW, whether or not Vince Russo was able to recognize that. I think it's an interesting one to consider. Do I think it's a legitimate one? Probably not, but still, these are wrestling conspiracy theories, so you have to take them with a grain of salt. And those are just 5 conspiracy theories within the world of professional wrestling. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, giving it a thumbs up, and comment down below which one was your favorite, or which ones did I not include in this video. And since you're here, please make sure to look at these other videos that I've already uploaded in the past. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all the pro wrestling content that is produced on this channel. And of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you guys in the next one.